Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's had a great week out there. We are back once again for another episode of the Zennial Report. Gotten some positive feedback recently from some fellow friends of mine, and we're working on trying to probably start marketing it out a little bit more and get this thing growing. But yeah, it's awesome that we're still doing this and trying to bring you all the news and the crazy stuff happening around the world. We got a lot more stuff to get into today. A lot has gone on over the past week, and I'm glad to be joined once again by my podcast co-host Josh Von Pohl. How are you doing, Josh?
Doing pretty good. Just got home from a busy day.
Yeah, and it's hot where you're at. It's not as bad where I'm at. I can't really complain, despite the fact I got some pretty good sun yesterday out playing golf. But yeah, 96 you said in Henderson or in Vegas right now. Oh my God, man! Like summer's come early.
It's gonna be high. It's gonna be like 100. We'll probably hit 125 a few
Oh,
days.
oh, it's so bad, man. Like, yeah, I'm not looking forward to 95, let alone triple digits, man. But yeah, it's coming. Fortunately, it's going to cool down a little bit here in the next week, and then I'm sure we'll get back up soon enough.
Yeah.
But but yeah, so obviously, we're gonna get into a lot of stuff. As always, make sure you subscribe to this page. Please follow. Please send this out to all your followers if you could. We appreciate all the support that you guys have given us so far. But let's go ahead and start this thing off by talking about one of the newest developments, which is ICE now at airports. So this is an article from The Guardian. TSA lines stretch for hours as Trump deploys ICE agents to U.S. airports. Now, I should also mention a lot of this is coming because of the recent battles in Congress to fund the TSA. There's an independent bill that the Democrats tried to set up to get signed by the Republicans. The Republicans are trying to get passed a bill that funds both ICE and the TSA, to basically fund DHS, but it includes a lot of money for ICE funding. And there have been, the political football, of course, being thrown back and forth on that front. But the Democrats did have a standalone bill to fund the TSA, and the Republicans have not signed that. So now it's led to some crazy wait times at airports that have stretched 4 or 5 plus hours at some places, such as Philadelphia. But here's the article right here. Security lines stretched for hours on Monday at U.S. airports where unpaid TSA screening agents refused to report for duty, and ICE agents deployed by Donald Trump were reportedly seen in a dozen cities. The president claimed over the weekend that immigration agents could help manage long lines, but in Atlanta, little immediate impact of their presence could be observed. Meanwhile, airport staff were getting creative trying to herd thousands of discontented passengers. Lines at Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport had spilled out from the screening area, winding inside and out of the staging area, the baggage claim, and at 9 a.m. were in a loop on the curb. People hoping to make mid-morning flights had been standing in line since before sunrise. Screening agents from the TSA have gone unpaid while the DHS remains partially shut down. The budget impasse in Washington, D.C. stems from demands by Democratic lawmakers to hold immigration enforcement agents to account after the killings of Renee Good and Alex Prudy in Minneapolis and practices of warrantless detention and militarized raids that have raised alarms. TSA agents missed their second paycheck on Friday. Many are not showing up for work, and hundreds have already reportedly quit. So, the airports where this is occurring at, there are 12 airports that have been listed. Firstly, Chicago O'Hare, Cleveland Hopkins International, Hartsfield Jackson Atlanta, Houston's William P. Hobby, John F. Kennedy International Airport, New York's LaGuardia, Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport, Luis Munoz Marin International Airport in Puerto Rico, Newark Liberty International, Philadelphia, Phoenix Sky Harbor, Pittsburgh International, and Southwest Florida International Airport. Now, even though those are the 12 that they say the ICE are at, I think that it would also be fair to say that it is happening at other airports as well. And that could be rung true from a recent video that kind of has gone viral from this area here in San Francisco. ICE agents arrest woman at SFO, bystanders capture on video. ICE agents arrested a woman and her daughter at SFO on Sunday night. The ICE agents conducted an enforcement operation inside San Francisco International Airport on Sunday, arresting a woman and her daughter in the secure area of Terminal 3, who the government said were issued a removal order back to Guatemala, airport officials and immigration officers said. I'm trying to load up the video here. Let me see if I can do so I could share it with you all. Let me get the share button up.
Is there an update on if they're gonna let Elon pay for the TSA funding crisis?
I've not heard anything on that front. I have not heard anything on that front. But
Okay.
here
Did
is,
you see that offer?
I did, yeah. Here is the video right here. Let me go ahead and play it for y'all. Oh, we got an ad. Sorry. Bear with us with the ad. Kate, this is from
Everyone's got.
KTVU, the Fox affiliate in San Francisco, if you can't tell. Agents. KTVU's Jana Katsuyama has more on what happened. Jana, we also just heard from State Senator Scott Wiener there at the airport.
Currently, it's is just wrapping up. He's still talking a little bit about some of the other issues that James was just mentioning. But I'm going to step aside so you can see. Like right now, we're over at the international terminal, and the spokesperson here for SFO did confirm that there were ICE officials here Sunday. Take a look at the video that we posted, that was posted on social media that precipitated this debate. Lot of questions raised by this video of this very public struggle that involved a woman and two officials. The video that was posted online, as you can see, shows a woman crying out as two men tried to detain her. The woman who was recording that video and posted it with a tag "ICE out" is asking the woman questions. Text on the video claims the woman was with her young child and was asked for ID when she was involved in the struggle with the ICE officers. Now, KTV.
So I guess my biggest question that I have coming out of that is if we're seeing that at San Francisco, when they mentioned that it was only at the 12 airports that were listed that I mentioned earlier, how many airports are we actually going to see this at? There were even concerns where kind of where near I'm at here at Sacramento International Airport of if they'd be there, of which Fly SMF has posted on their Instagram and X accounts that their ICE agents will not be there, and that they've actually still been able to keep a lot of TSA agents. But I guess my question, Josh, is, I mean, I think it's inevitable that as long as a bill isn't passed, we're not going to see any increase in TSA agents. We're only going to see a decrease. And that means, are we going to see more ICE agents at more airports? The crazy thing is, regardless of people's thoughts on the TSA, I know that, there's certainly a libertarian argument out there of, hey, how annoying is this that, they have to check all this stuff, how long it takes. Obviously, all that stems back to 9/11. There's certainly a question there. But regardless, however you feel about it, it is people who are doing a job. It is people who are doing their jobs. And those people are not getting paid, while the people that are now being there to try to supplement that are not doing those jobs are getting paid. And I think that that's the thing I think a lot of people are concerned about. Well, at the same time, if you look back at Project 2025, it is listed in there that they actively want to decrease TSA people at airports and replace them with federal officials. So, and what I mean by that is not obviously TSA is federal, but they like enforcement officers, if you will. So my question for you is, do you feel that this is inevitably going to lead to a major change in the way things are done at airports going forward? Do you think ultimately this is just a political football, that something's going to pass soon enough and that somebody's going to cave? Where do you feel that this is going to lead to?
Um. Well, first off, I think TSA or ICE has way too much funding if they can just send them out to the airports to do TSA's jobs. Like, why not just take that money and give it to TSA to do their job? So it's like, I don't think this is really going to change much with how we run international, or not international, but the travel for security with our airports. Because I mean, there's just been a standard for so long and it works. So why I'm all about not fixing or not fixing something that's not broken.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, you need more of them to where it's more efficient to be able to get through security, because there's some airports where there isn't enough even before all this happened, and it still takes way too long. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes to go through an airport security screening. I'm sorry.
Or if you're willing to sign up for the extra stuff and pay the extra fees, like some people I know do the clear I think they suspended it for a little bit, but I think they brought it back. But yeah, that's a good way to get people who want to spend the money and don't want to wait in line to get them through. So it's like we need more avenues like that, not less.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I know that there have been issues with air travel and transportation in some way, shape, or form ever since COVID. Obviously, when it went back to how that industry basically plummeted because there was no air travel obviously during that time, and then ever since then there have been issues with unions and getting pilots paid and other agents of some airlines, and now we're starting to see it inside airports too. So yeah, I'll just say this as a quick aside, as a quick rant. This, in my opinion, is more of a reason too of why we need to prioritize rail. We need to prioritize, I think, much
Uh,
more rail in the entire nation. And speaking of that, I don't have it up with me right now, but
what's
recently
the
there
next
have been
topic?
developments in the Bay Area that BART doesn't have the funding, and they're going to have to eventually phase out BART over these next 3 to 4 years if they don't have the funding, which
Dude,
is only going to destroy the Bay Area economy.
our
So
country is falling apart.
to me, honestly, over time, my opinion of like what the most important issues are has changed. For a while, it was war, which still is very important. For a while, it was healthcare, which is still very important. But in this ever growing population of a country and economy and the limiting of how many jobs are available to people in certain areas, I think transportation is the most important issue right now of our time. And I
Yeah.
think that especially with how the cost of
Cars are
gas right now and
way
energy,
too cars, bro.
yeah,
The average car payment I think is like $750 now.
yeah,
That's insane. That's
yeah,
crazy.
exactly. And so to me, there needs to be more high speed rail. We need to prioritize making it easier for people. And we need to prioritize, like I mentioned last week, being able to produce our own energy and have more oil to where we can actually have in this country instead of getting it from overseas. So, nonetheless, I think
And
that this is just showing that our government is actively trying to create more holes and make people's lives
well,
more
that's their job.
difficult.
That's their job.
Yeah,
That's literally the job of the government is to like create problems so they can get reelected to solve them.
I'll say I don't know the contingent, but I think that Trump's poll numbers are only going to collapse more and more, and this is inevitably going to lead to an even bigger showdown in the midterms. I mean, to me, like I have a hard time believing with the amount of stupid things just from a practical level that I have seen Trump and the MAGA Republicans do. Like you can't expect to win off that. So
No,
you're basically banking on that you're going to find a way to try to still win some
I think it's
elections.
going to be the SAVE Act. If they get that through, it's going to be
But
harder.
like there is no way that's going to pass either. I mean, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. There's just those three bills over ICE, TSA, and the SAVE Act are just political footballs being thrown around in Congress while nothing's getting done. So
Yep.
that's what's super frustrating about that front. But anywho, so that's everything with that. Josh, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Speaking about unfortunately things that are wastes of money,
This is going to be
or
a
the amount of money our government wastes. Tell me a little bit about this. I know that there's another
citizens
video
all.
out there. We saw Nick Shirley do a video in
Yeah.
Minnesota.
Okay.
There's one out here in California too. Go ahead and talk to me a little bit about this, and we can maybe have a good discussion here.
Yeah. I mean, the Minnesota one was kind of weird. Just like they were already going through the fraud. So I think he just found a new kind of different thing they were doing with fraud in what was it, the daycares over there. So now it's kind of the same thing. Obviously, they are trying to investigate all the fraud they can, but this is something Nick Shirley found. He claims there's $170 million of California daycare fraud, and they're doing it by opening up hospices. And I watched this entire video, and he was focused around one building that looked like it used to be like an apartment, and literally all of them got turned into like hospice companies.
Yeah, I was down in Van Nuys, I believe.
Yeah. So, a ghost network of empty lots and strip mall storefronts in California has become the front line of multi-billion-dollar federal state clash. It's a new investigation by YouTuber Nick Shirley alleging $170 million in daycare fraud had fuel to the fire ignited by Dr. Mehmet Oz. Dr. Oz's Recent street investigation exposed 3.5 billion hospice schemes centered in Los Angeles. Um, we'll do that. Together, these dual probes paint a portrait of an alleged fraud epidemic that critics say has turned California into a national epicenter of organized Medicare and social service exploitation, which I mean, we all know it's happening. I don't understand how California goes from a gigantic surplus to a deficit so quickly, even though the GDP continues to grow. So it's like there's fraud happening somewhere between whether it's between Medicaid fraud or Medi-Cal or the bullet train or anything else. It's just the fraud's got to get. It's got. We need accountability. Like what is going on
I
with all
think
the waste?
I think with the bullet train, there's too many people trying to get a piece of the pie. I think there's too many uh private contractors involved. I think there's too many people trying to get contracts from that in general,
That's
and
the
it's led to just it being dragged out over time. Regarding this video, and I believe I saw that 170 million figure, or no, sorry, the 3.5 billion figure that's in the Los Angeles area. I think that I saw that accounts for 10% of all hospice money in the entire nation,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. Um, now,
So
I I'll say this: I don't know obviously how much of the entire video is true, how much of those places
yeah,
actually are and are not there, and
exaggerations.
whatnot. Now, I did see the first. I watched the first half of the video. I haven't watched the second half, but I
Mhm.
watched the first half of the video. And he was going up like he did, but this time he had a lady with him instead of a guy, and was going up to a couple daycares. They closed the door on him. He saw a
They're all
couple of kids
cussing at
asking if
him.
there were
Yeah,
any adults there. There weren't. And I've already mentioned this before. I think I might even mention it on the first episode that it's not exactly a great look to say, "Hey, where are the kids at?" But at the
yeah,
same time, like he had the camera going inside some of these places that looked like they were basically, like you said, apartments or
yeah.
hotel
It was
rooms,
like
and there's
empty
nothing
too.
in there. It's just empty rooms. So it definitely is a little bit concerning. But just with fraud in general, it definitely is the case in Los Angeles. I think that we you can go back to the fires that happened in
Oh
Palisades
yeah,
early
I
last
mean, that was
year,
good.
and there's a lot of stuff with that. But also there's a great piece on the there's a great piece I watched on this on 5149 James Lee on YouTube, but there is a massive misuse of land at the West Los Angeles VA Medical Center complex. It was originally donated back in the late 1880s. It was supposed to house disabled veterans, but what has actually happened is that they've leased portions of the 388-acre campus to commercial entities, including UCLA, for its Jackie Robinson Stadium baseball field, Brentwood School for athletic activities, and they try to say like, hey, that's not being used for athletics, but then the pool for Brentwood, they say, oh no, it's being used by athletes. There are athletes from UCLA, and so it doesn't allow veterans to really go over there. Now, I will say that there was a ruling, I believe, last year from the appeals court that basically said that hey, they have to actually build 2,500 housing units over there, and that they ordered that UCLA stadium locked down because of basically taking advantage of the money that's supposed to go towards funding those homeless veterans who are just on the street.
It's
So
another big fraudulent business is the VA.
Yeah. Oh, big time. But I think that the big thing is, we talk about Southern California, and obviously, there's smaller cities branched off of it, and other mayors that run it. But when I just look at Los Angeles in general, when it comes to that, when it comes to the horrible misuse of the fire situation, you could go across the political spectrum and find people on the far right and far left that will all say screw Mayor Bass. Karen Bass is awful as a
Mhm.
leader down there, and there definitely needs to be different leadership down in the Southern California area, especially in Los Angeles. So when
Yes,
you
that's
mentioned fraud,
track challenging.
fraud goes much beyond, as you were mentioning, just what this case may be. But there needs to be much more investigations that go into that. But it needs to be it needs to also be non-biased, and it shouldn't come from one political party. But it's
Uh,
definitely interesting stuff. Ironically, that's not the only story coming out of Southern California, as there was also other stuff coming out of Southern California, including Sheriff Bianco, who's running for governor this year,
Mhm.
apparently seizing some ballots down in his neck of the woods. So this is an article from AP News that came out, I believe it was either earlier today or yesterday. Um, a California sheriff running for governor has seized more than 500,000 ballots cast in a November special election from county election officials, saying he's investigating a ballot count discrepancy. County elections officials have disputed the claims by Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, a Republican. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, a Democrat, called Bianco's move unprecedented and said it is designed to sow distrust in elections. Bianco held a news conference Friday, saying his office had launched the investigation after receiving a complaint from a local citizens group about the ballot count from a November 2025 special election on redistricting. In the special election, voters approved a measure to redraw congressional district lines to favor Democrats in the upcoming midterm election. The measure passed in the county by a margin of more than 80,000 votes. Sorry. There we go. Sorry, my phone was acting up. Bianco seized ballots in Riverside County, the inland California county of 2.5 million people, where he has twice been elected sheriff. He called the effort a fact finding mission. The investigation is simple: physically count the ballots and compare that result with the total votes reported, he said Friday. Bianco is one of two prominent Republicans running for governor in a crowded June primary that includes more than half a dozen Democrats. California runs on a top two primary system, puts all candidates on the same ballot regardless of party, and sends the two candidates who get the most voters to the November general. So a lot of people are, saying, hey, is, this going to be play an impact, or is this just a precedent of what, he might try to do in November? The crazy thing is, and as I just mentioned, there's still so many candidates trying to run for governor. You got Tom Steyer, you got Katie Porter, you got Tony Thurmond, you got Eric Swalwell. You have so many Democrats running, but you just have Steve Hilton, who used to be a Fox News contributor, and then Bianco, who's the sheriff. Who, by the way, he said something about Sacramento that was also laughingly wrong. He said, "You can't go down a street in Sacramento and not see a homeless person." There's a homeless issue in Sacramento. I've walked on the streets plenty of times. There are streets that are just fine. But at the same time, like, Democrats, they gotta limit that field, or else it could be an interesting two candidates that run. I did see Eric Swalwell is now kind of jumped into the top three, but regardless, it's just interesting to see this, and will this play a role in potentially other elections, not just in this state but the entire country, and how they're going in the in the midterms.
Do you think a Republican has any chance this election at winning California governor?
The only way is if the Democrats are dumb enough to not limit the field, which I think we've already seen one or two of them drop out, and it ends up being just Bianco and Hilton, which I don't think I see that happening. I will say, if it is one of those Republicans versus a Democrat, I think the margin is going to be much closer than some people will think. I don't think a Republican's going to win, but I wouldn't be surprised if even it's as close as 2 points. I honestly would be surprised, because there are definitely people that are frustrated with how Newsom has governed the state, and I have frustrations too, but they don't come from the right. They come from his poor mismanagement in general, how he kowtows to corporations. It comes more from a left wing perspective. My biggest frustration is his hypocrisy and his blatant utter corruption regarding PG&E. Those are my biggest frustrations. So, but to answer your question, I don't think so, but I think that if it is a Republican versus a Democrat, it could be very close. It could be like a 2 points. I do think that will be the case. I think the Democrats will be smart enough to eliminate to where it will just be one guy they'll center around. And I think it will be one of those two Republicans, which are pretty close right now in the polling, that will go against them. I imagine Swalwell is going to be the guy. I have major issues with Eric Swalwell. I have major issues with a lot of the candidates that are running. Ironically, I have major issues with him too, but the least of my issues actually might be with Steyer, who's a billionaire, but I have issues with all of them, trust me. But there is positive news coming out of California. Ironically, I was actually going to talk about all this later, but it kind of just worked to be all in of itself. California is introducing a literacy course on a financial literacy course to kids. I wish this was a thing when we were going to school, Josh,
This
but
needs to be federally
it.
applied.
What did you say? Sorry.
This needs to be federally applied.
It does. It needs to be federally applied 100%. But so this came out of the governor's office last Thursday. California introduces financial literacy course starting with the class of 2030 to 31. Governor Gavin Newsom announced on Wednesday that California is moving forward with a one semester personal finance course for high school students following the State Board of Education's adoption of the curriculum guide for a bill signed by the governor in 2024. Newsom also issued an executive order to expand opportunities for women and their families to build wealth through financial literacy. The curriculum guide, which was developed by the Instructional Quality Commission and adopted by the State Board of Education, includes banking, saving, and avoiding unnecessary fees, budgeting and managing everyday expenses, credit, debt, and credit scores, student loans and financing higher education and careers, investing, retirement savings and wealth building tools, pathways to college, careers and apprenticeships, scholarships, merit aid, and student loans. Course will be offered beginning in the 27-28 school year, and completion of it will be required for graduation starting with the class of 2030 to 31. I don't understand how this wasn't a class already. I'm sure there are other states that have it. I was fortunate that I did have a couple of math teachers that went over some of this stuff in school, but a lot of this just usually, you have to rely on a parent to do it. We're setting kids up for failure by not having this course. So I think this is a massive W. This is probably one of the best things I've seen Newsom and the state actually implement in a while. And yeah, I think this is going to be a big positive across the board.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard of the show Financial Audit on YouTube, but holy cow, is this needed based off of just watching that? Like, there's so many people that have no idea, like, a clue of how to build credit or save money or how to actively, what are the best avenues to create wealth? It's just insane.
Yeah, I think it's funny that if you were to ask people, um, like what is a windfall tax? You were to ask people, what different taxes are. A lot of people wouldn't be able to answer those questions because a lot of people, don't get that kind of education on that, and it's very important to just understand, even if there's disagreements you have with the market, understanding how it operates. So, you can argue for improvement or things to be,
Mm.
potentially changed, but also just understanding how to be able to have a savings account, retirement account. There's still people I know that are around my age that don't have credit cards. I mean, it's
Or a
crazy.
401k.
Yeah,
Bro,
exactly.
it's crazy. It's honestly sad. Like, there's gonna be a lot of people that, I mean, because what, 50% of America or United States isn't even invested $1 into the stock market, and then you have the top. I think it was like 10% controlling 90% of the
Yeah.
stock market.
Well,
So,
the problem is this is probably I would guess the most financially illiterate generation that we're in
oh,
right
for
now.
sure, hundred
But
percent.
but also our policies of today are prioritizing the boomer class and people who are older, the silent generation. So by the time that people like me and
That's
you
who's still in
get
power.
into our 60s and 70s, we're fucked.
Yeah,
I mean, it's seriously like, I mean, unless there's some legislation that changes over these next 30 to 40 years, it's going to be
dude,
our
Social
generation's going to
Security,
dude,
like,
it's gonna be crazy, man. It's gonna be
yeah.
so bad.
If
But
the country doesn't fall from Trump being in office, it's gonna definitely fall for Social Security hitting the fucking insolvency.
yeah, no, couldn't agree with you more there. But it was a little bit of good news today, and I'm glad we're on the same page with that. But I still have a couple things I want to chat about. But one of them actually kind of goes with one of the things that you wanted to talk about, and this was some big news that came at the end of last
Yeah,
week.
this is
Go
huge.
ahead, Josh.
Joe Kent resigned over Iran, which was, I mean, he's got the best counterterrorism information there is that you can possibly see. So it's like if he's saying it, if Tulsi, it's literally if everybody is saying Iran was not a threat to us directly and they were not going to attack us, why is Trump still the president?
Yeah.
It's just
And it's funny is Tulsi had to, and I mentioned this to you over text, that Tulsi had to go in front of John Ossoff, and I don't remember exactly where the meeting was at or what the board was, but he basically grilled her and said, "Hey, you said that they were not a threat after we attacked them last summer, but then
Mhm.
all of a sudden they're a threat again. You said also coming in though that they were not trying to build up their nuclear program. So like, where is this coming from? Where's your stance?" And then she said, well, all of this is determined by the president, which is false, and she knows that. And
Yeah.
if I had to pick, because I'm very disappointed in Tulsi Gabbard, I
Yeah.
think we
Oh, me
both are.
too. Yeah.
But if I had to pick her brain, I think that she's probably of the mindset of, fuck, I'm too deep in this shit, but I can't do anything because I have to cover for him if I still want a job. Tulsi, have some guts, have a backbone, and actually call out this piece of shit. But she ain't gonna do that because she's so focused on just having a job and keeping it. So she's just gonna say what Trump wants her to hear.
You would think these people got enough money by now.
You would think how long they've been in there for, but
Like you would think they'd be
yeah.
able to stand up for their morals.
Same thing is true with RFK when we've talked about before with certain
Yeah,
things. I
dude.
mean,
It's like
it's
they've all sold out.
yeah. So, but yeah, Joe Can, who was one of his top counterterrorism advisors, he stepped down. He actually mentioned that basically we're only involved in this because of Israel.
Yeah.
We're only
He
involved
said
over here for
that's
that.
the main reason.
He called it out on that. He had a really good interview with Tucker Carlson on it. It's funny because there are still a couple times in the interview, I forget exactly what it was said, but a couple of things were mentioned about Trump, and he still is a little
Yeah,
defensive
and
in a couple of
still
ways.
it's not to
But like, bro, again, just at this point,
like
dump him. Trump's already dumped you. He's already
yeah,
called you out. Just dump him. Like, so many people are just
I don't
gutless,
get it.
ballless cowards, man.
I don't get it.
But regardless, him stepping down is at least a step in the right direction. Is good to see, and we'll see what happens. But that kind of goes into the next thing I want to chat about, which is, if you thought we were done talking about Iran, the Middle East, you're wrong, because 2,200 Marines are being moved to the Middle East. This is an article from CBS News from the past week. And this was the saddest thing I've seen in a while. Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground forces into Iran. Multiple sources briefed on the discussions told to CBS News. Senior military commanders have submitted specific requests aimed at preparing for such an option as President Trump weighs moves in the U.S.-Israel-led conflict with Iran, the sources said. Mr. Trump has been deliberating whether to position ground forces in the region, sources said, on condition of anonymity, because they were not authorized to speak publicly. It was unclear under what circumstances he would authorize the use of troops on the ground. Quote, "No, I'm not putting troops anywhere," he told reporters in the Oval Office on Thursday when asked about ground troops, but quickly added, quote, "If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you." Um, he then goes on to say the U.S. is preparing to deploy elements of the 82nd Airborne Division into the Middle East region. The planning involves the Army's Global Response Force and the Marine Corps Marine Expeditionary Unit. Thousands of Marines are being moved now to the Middle East. 3 warships and about 2,200 Marines from an expeditionary unit departed California earlier this week, according to 2 U.S. officials. It was the second such Marine unit sent since the war began, and it could be a few weeks before it's in place. The first was sent from the Pacific and is still making its way into the region. The movements underscore the Pentagon's effort to expand military options available to the president, even as administration officials publicly decline to discuss potential next steps. This is very personal to me because I know people who are still in the military and they're in the Marine Corps. And I know that this gets said a lot, but the fact that we might be sending some of our brothers and sisters to die on the front lines for Israel, and to be on the front lines of a place that is nowhere near the same as Afghanistan or Iraq. There's much more mountains. It's much more tumultuous. It makes no sense.
More people.
More people, more civilians. It's disgusting. But again, this is all part of Israel ain't going to send anybody over there. We're doing their dirty work because they want Iran to be a failed state. We've already seen what they're doing. They've already killed 1,000 civilians in southern Lebanon and are destroying bridges to where people can't even go back to those homes right now. So to me, this is another situation where any other if it were any other country involved, Trump would already be tacoing and getting out of there. And there already have been signs that he may be doing that, which I actually hope is the case. But there's got to be dirt, man. They got to have dirt on him to keep trying to force him to do this shit.
How many days do they have until Congress has to act?
So 60. I believe the number
Yeah,
60, and we're right now at right around a month, I want to say.
yeah, that's
So
probably
so I
right.
think that's all that might also play a role of, okay, we have to start semi de-escalating because we know that,
So yeah,
if
they
it
got
gets
a
to 60
month.
days. Because
Oh, did you just?
there is no way Congress would vote to go to war with Iran. If they did, there would literally be more. I know that we don't protest the way the French do. I know we're not as out in the streets, but I promise you, if Congress voted to go to war with Iran, there would be bottles thrown at these politicians' heads.
Yeah.
It's like that would be the protests. If you thought the Iraq War protests were something, oh boy, you you have no idea. I would be out there on the street. I'm not afraid to say it. And
I think a lot of
yeah,
us would be. That's
yeah,
probably be the first real protest I go. Because I've never really gone to a protest.
yeah,
Kind of just watched it online. But
yeah,
yeah, I'd actively participate in those.
yeah. So but we'll see. I ultimately think that, for lack of a better term, because he's not a cool head at all, but I ultimately do feel cooler heads are going to prevail. I do think that we are going to get out of there.
Oh.
However,
Do
I don't think Iran's done. They're
you
going to
see the
keep bombing Israel.
reports? Do you see Trump saying that they're having discussions, and then Iranian media is saying they're not?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it's
Well,
just like, what do you even believe?
there were those reports last week of, I think, two ballistic missiles that they said were fired by Iran that hit a U.S. base out in the South Indian Ocean, I want to say. But Iran denied that, or one of them they said was somebody reported on was intercepted before it got there. So now there's questions of whose missile really was that hit that base in the southern Indian Ocean. So that's going to be interesting to see if that ever has an investigation. We already saw when they tried to claim that it was Iran's missiles that bombed that elementary
Yeah.
school that were missed. Nope, it was proved that it was the U.S. So don't be surprised if there is a false flag in some senses that is coming, not just with that, but potentially some other things
I'm
too.
surprised we haven't had one on our soil yet.
I think it's because they know that whatever it is they try to do on this soil, people are gonna know. People aren't dumb.
Mhm.
People are have their blinkers on. I think in
Well,
this,
people
at
are
least in
dumb.
this country. But again, when it comes to our military bases, that's when there's more questions. So I
Yeah.
think that's where I think it's going to come in. So we'll see what happens. But I know Trump has said, hey, you better open the Strait of Hormuz or we're going to, destroy everything. We've seen that said before. Trump, of course, over the weekend said he was glad Robert Mueller was dead. I don't
Yeah,
care
that's
for him
crazy.
either, but we've seen this before. It's like, it's hard for me. I shouldn't feel this way, but like nothing surprises me anymore.
No. It's like they'll get mad at you for cheering Charlie Kirk died, and then Trump can completely trash
Yeah.
on Robert Mueller, and nobody cares.
Yeah, it's insane, man. But just had a quick update I wanted to bring to something too, because I know that we talked about this probably what 2-3 weeks ago, I want to say, on the show, about the transgender Kansas license plates for them. So that is now in place, where if you are a transgender in Kansas, you basically can't drive now. There is a hearing, though, scheduled. This is from the ACLU Kansas, in legal challenge to the anti-trans law SB 244. The hearing is going to begin on September 29th for a temporary injunction in Doe versus Kansas. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, right now, the legislature has passed it and has invalidated driver's licenses of transgender people in the state. So again, you got to love where our priorities are going, right? Just absolutely incredible. One other thing I just wanted to say too, real quick, going back to the fraud thing you mentioned earlier about LA. I meant to mention this. There have been some studies and some independent investigations also that have been done into some of those centers for fraud, and there definitely is more to it than what was the case in Minnesota. Excuse me. There's been shown that More than 700 of the nearly 1,800 hospice facilities in LA County have three or more red flags the state has outlined as indicators of fraud. This was done by the federal CMS hospice database, also in accordance with CBS News as well. There are even looks like upwards of 1,000 others that have at least, or it was at 900, about 900 others that have at least one red flag. So there definitely is some fraud going on there. I think
Yeah.
that it'll be interesting to see if it gets looked into even more.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it does. I'm trying to
Um,
see some accountability.
yeah, 100% right there with you. Well, that leads us to the last thing I wanted to chat about today, which kind of still sticking with the terms of war, the Middle East, but also more stuff going on with decision makings from judges. This is something that came out in Politico late last week. Federal judge has reversed Pentagon press restrictions. As a journalist myself, this is something near and dear to my heart. So this is very important to me. The Trump administration violated the Constitution when it sought to restrict press access to the Pentagon and limit what reporters could cover, a federal judge ruled on Friday. U.S. District Judge Paul Friedman granted a request from the New York Times to void the Pentagon's press credential policy on grounds it violated the First and Fifth Amendment, rejecting the government's argument that the restrictions were needed to prevent the disclosure of classified information. The court recognizes that national security must be protected, the security of our troops must be protected, and war plans must be protected, but especially in light of the country's recent incursion into Venezuela and its ongoing war with Iran, it is more important than ever that the public have access to information from a variety of perspectives about what the government is doing. The ruling, which comes as journalists around the world seek information about the war in Iran, rolls back a highly aggressive attack on press freedom implemented last year by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. Quote, Americans deserve visibility into how their government is being run and the actions their military is taking in their name and with their tax dollars, said Charlie Statlander, a spokesperson for the New York Times. Today's ruling reaffirms the right of the Times and other independent media to continue to ask questions on the public's behalf. Pentagon spokesperson Sean Parnell has said the administration would appeal the ruling. I actually have his full statement right here. The department always complies with court orders but disagrees with the decision and is pursuing an appeal. He added that revision and media policies would be effective immediately. Again, this goes back to the prohibitive measure from the Pentagon this past September. The department said it would only credential reporters if they had pledged not to publish information that was not approved for public release by the Pentagon. Nearly every major news outlet refused to make that commitment. Only a few like OAN, I think Newsmax, and a couple others had agreed to that. But I mean, yeah, obviously the government cannot be the ones that are telling you what you can or can't post. So, yeah, I'm very much happy to see this. That at least there is some positive news coming out of this. But
It's so funny because like the Republicans were literally just yelling at Biden's administration over the last 4 years about censoring them, especially online.
yeah,
So then they get into power and then put something into place that makes that like it's the hypocrisy in politics just makes me shake my head.
it's 100% hypocrisy. And listen, I'm not afraid to say too, as a person who even is a journalist, our press is like barbecue chicken in this country, like in the
Yeah.
sense of how, like it's basically becoming a much more of a monopoly. There's only like what, three or four major companies
Oh yeah.
now. We've already seen what's happening with the Ellison Group and how much media they're taking. Like, listen, I still believe in press freedom, but there needs to be, like, we need to stop monopolies, and there probably should be certain restrictions from the government, but it shouldn't be based off of what they're reporting. So that
Yeah.
is that is a big no-no, and our forefathers are definitely rolling over in their graves over that one. But yeah, it's a lot of hypocrisy out there for sure. And I'll leave it on this and just say, how ironic would it be, even though I don't want to see this happen, how at least in the California sense necessarily, how ironic would it be that California gets new leadership and somehow it's a Republican that actually wins California, but it's a blue wave everywhere else in the country,
Dude, that
and
would
they
be
win
so
it in the
funny.
midterms. It basically would be the political SNL of this generation right now.
Like if Texas and California flip.
You know what's crazy is
That'd be
there's a
fun.
way that Texas could definitely go blue too. I mean, of course, Tallarico's got a shot over there,
Yep.
and we'll see what ends up happening as time continues. But I think that the Republicans are in for a rude awakening these midterms,
Oh, yeah.
as long as things are not rigged in a certain way, for sure. Yeah.
I don't think it will be. They haven't gotten enough in place.
Yeah, I'm with you there. So, well, I think that's gonna do it, Josh. I guess before we get going today, anything else you'd like to add, just about anything going on this week, or anything in the country, before we see
Uh,
how it gets broken more next week.
oh, it's just some Vegas news. I think it was a federal judge just put a 14-day ban on Kalshi and Poly Market
Wow.
in Nevada, and I think they're gonna crack down on them because, like, I know across the United States, there's been like the people are being wanting to like ban them pretty much, or at least their political kind of things, because it's like there's just more room to control the narrative when you have public bets like that. Because then people are saying like, oh well, this dude put $500,000 on it, like that's real money. It's just like it's just an influence we don't need. So I'm more on the side of, at least for politics, we should be banning Cauchy and Polymarket from that. But sports, I think it's fair game for them. I don't think that they should be banned from having sport markets.
Yeah, and it's ironic that in I actually feel like it could be more open, at least where you're at, in the sense of sports, because ironically in Vegas, and I think all in Nevada, if I'm not mistaken, you can't bet on DraftKings or some stuff online because they want it to be at the casinos, only the place where you can
Yeah,
go.
you actually have to go to the. I think MGM Grand is working with DraftKings, but you have to go there and like actually, if you want to sign up, like validate everything. You
Now,
can't
now,
do
now, I will say, being out here in California, I would like the ability to do that because
it.
baseball season's about to start, and I would like my ability to be able to bet on some over unders for wins this year because
Well,
I very much am going to be watching them.
the bookies used to be a big thing,
Yeah,
but ever since it went online, those kind of went away.
yeah, exactly. So,
So that
but
could
but
come.
but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, definitely fun sports time of the year with the NCAA tournament
Yeah.
and everything else going on. I'm going to be able to get out to some of those games this week with, in San Jose and Sacramento, which will be fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Before we get going, there actually is one final thing I wanted to chat about today, and that is this is from CNN. The Supreme Court is hearing oral arguments in a case of whether states may count mail-in ballots received after Election Day. Multiple conservatives were skeptical of a Mississippi law enacted after the COVID-19 pandemic that allows ballots to be received up to 5 days late as long as they are postmarked by Election Day. Justices Samuel Alito and Brett Kavanaugh also suggested the Mississippi law could make it easier for fraudulent votes to be cast or for voters to assume fraud occurred when a contest outcome swings days after Election Day once late arriving ballots are counted. 14 states and Washington, D.C. allow regular mail ballots to be accepted after Election Day, including presidential battleground Nevada. Most of the nation's battleground states, including Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, require ballots to be received by Election Day. My take on this is I'm totally fine with mail in ballots being a thing. I think we need more poll workers. I think we need more people actually working those to be able to get the results in faster because I think that's, and more mail workers too, because I don't think I'm not a fan of it taking that long either. I think the
Mm.
honestly, if we're not going to know by election night, we damn better know by noon the next day who won that race. I don't think it should take any longer than that to get certain races figured out. If we don't know by the day after, something's a problem. I definitely agree
I'm
on
all
that front.
for early voting, but late voting, no. Like,
Yeah.
if it's not, we should know within 24 hours of the election closing. We should know.
Exactly. No, totally agree with you there. So, I think that there needs to be more resources put into that. But of course, our government will use it as a political football to say why there needs to be less people voting or there needs to be voter ID because that's all they care
Yeah.
about. So,
Yeah.
that is what we will see on that front. But well, I think that that's going to do it for our show today. Again, we appreciate everyone for tuning in as always. We'll be back here to talk about a lot more stuff going on as there's always stuff to chat about each week.
Okay.
Again, feel free to please subscribe to this page, share it out with all your friends. I'm Josh for my co-host Josh. I'm Josh. I'm Aaron. That's Aaron. I'm Josh. Yeah, let's try that again. I'm Aaron for my co-host Josh Von Pohl. I'm saying goodbye from the Zennial Report. We will see you next week for episode 5. Take care. Bye.
Thanks, guys.